That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Never Let Go, the 10th film directed by Alexandre Aja, which Lionsgate is releasing September 20th, 2024.
I know I really like Alexander Aja's film Crawl. Am I familiar with any of his other films?
Yes, I'm also a big fan, even though it has a stupid, ridiculous twist. I still love it for that Cecile de France performance, High Tension, his sophomore.
Oh, yes.
You also know him from the Hills Have Eyes remake, which I also think was pretty damn good. Piranha 3D, also remake, but I remember thinking it was a lot of fun. There were a few that I don't care for, like Mirrors, which is a remake of a South Korean film, Horns, which is a film I got to interview him for, I didn't care for. The low point was The Ninth Life of Louis Drax. But you're a big fan of Crawl. I'm too. And we reviewed his last film, Oxygen, starring Melanie Laurent. Is that a woman trapped in space? Or maybe she isn't.
I remember that, yes. Okay, what is Never Let Go about? A family consisting of a mother and her twin sons has suffered from the torment of a malicious spirit for many years. However, when one of the boys starts to doubt the existence of the evil, the family's sacred bond is broken, leading to a dangerous fight for survival. What's your pull quote?
A well-acted, moody allegory on the dangers of blind faith, exacerbated by the terrors of mental illness. Never Let Go allows an interesting alchemy with star Halle Berry and director Alexandre Aja.
You went to a press screening and Halle Berry showed up.
It was actually a promo screening that press was invited to. So they,
Oh,
where at the last minute they pack it in with all these people that waited 2 hours to see a free movie.
oh.
Uh, at the Century City. But yeah, right before it started, she just popped up, and I thought it was, something I've always appreciated about her. She takes herself seriously, but also is constantly expressing a need to want to push herself. Um, Kind of like I got to see her be interviewed by Ava DuVernay at the Bruise premiere at the AFI Film Festival, which she directed. And she always throws herself into everything. And she executive produced this, which she also announced to the audience and was like, I'm gonna be on Twitter tonight. She said, I want everybody, if you'd like to, please reach out to me. So you don't see a lot of people of her caliber doing things like that, and I don't know that people appreciate that as much as they should.
Sure. Yeah. And you sent pictures to me. She looks fantastic.
She looked great, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell the story. Major spoilers. So if you don't want to know, turn it off. Halle Berry plays a mother with two sons who are twins, and the boys are maybe like 9 or 10 years old. They
Mhm.
live in a cabin in the woods, and Halle has convinced her children who grew up in this house that the world has ended and that there are like evil spirits outside. So the only way they're safe when they leave the cabin, which is mainly to go forage for food, is they have to attach themselves to this rope that is attached to the house. And then when they return, they have to say this prayer to cleanse them. But of the two sons, one believes his mother, like very much believes what she's selling. The other twin has doubt, Meryl. But everything comes to a head because winter's approaching and they're growing their own food, like and foraging for animals, but it's become difficult. So Hallie says, well, since we're having a hard time getting food and the winter's coming, we need to eat the family dog. And the son who doubts is like, oh, hell no. So on the day that Hallie's going to kill this dog, the son cuts her rope and Hallie loses it. So now she's locked in this greenhouse and starts to become possessed. And it's important to know that when the film opens, as the audience, we know that the visions she's seeing are like hallucinations.
Mhm.
Okay, so Hallie's in this greenhouse freaking out because she's seeing a demon, which happens to be her mother. And Hallie decides that she's not going out like this, so she kills herself. And this is a little bit after the halfway point.
Mhm.
So now we're just left with the two sons. And
And one of them, the believer, played by Anthony B. Jenkins from Lee Daniels' The Deliverance, he has previously broken his ankle, so he's recuperating and also very kind of sickly. So that's affecting his mental faculties.
So the other brother, the one who's not injured, who has doubt, he runs off to try to find help and makes it to, he's still wearing the rope, but he like doubled up the rope. So he's able to make it close to like a road and sees someone or
No,
starts, or I'm
he's
sorry, he starts screaming for help, comes back to the house. And then this man, this like white man shows up saying, "Hey, I heard someone yelling for help." But then the sickly brother, the believer, shoots and kills that man. But that man had a daughter with him who's aged similar to the boys. And she shows up talking about, "I can't find my dad."
yeah.
And the boy who killed him is like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." So she runs off. He chases her and ends up taking off his rope. And so now he's possessed. So clearly he's, sewed into whatever his mom raised him with.
He's
And
marinated in the Kool-Aid too long, yeah.
yeah, and so the believer brother ends up setting the house on fire. So the final scene of the film is a helicopter comes to airlift them out. But Halle Berry had left her sons a Polaroid camera with one picture left, and she told them, "You'll know the right time to take the photo." And so the one who believes takes the photo of himself with the fire in the background, and we see in the photo that a monster is gripping his shoulder. The end.
Yes.
Um, when I watched the trailer, I was getting like the Watchers mixed with the Deliverance.
Hmm.
And so I was a little concerned, but based on your pull quote and what you said to me earlier, you did enjoy this film.
I did enjoy. Well, I think the subtext of the narrative about what it's saying, like was we all grow up in a certain way, more or less indoctrinated by our own parents' beliefs. That's how we are guided through the world and understand the world as it is. So to have that set in this kind of extreme circumstance, because Halle Berry's character has also convinced her children that the world, it's like the village. There's no world outside this cabin, and they will live and die here alone. Um, she also sees, but the vision she's seeing, again, it was very clear to me from the opening credits that these are all in her head. But when we realize that this white woman that looks kind of like Shelley Winters-ish, that's got a forked tongue and things coming out of her mouth, is her mother. It's like, oh, this is you. This is not only just in your head, but you have some kind of significant, maybe schizophrenic, some kind of diagnosis that went undiagnosed,
Untreated. Yeah.
untreated. And that also the way the kids talk amongst themselves about her is like that she maybe killed her parents, because we learned that her dad built this cabin out in the woods and they were an interracial couple. Because the mother thought that bad things were coming, like was having apocalyptic vision. So it was also inherited from this other woman that it also seems was abusive. And we learned she also probably killed the children's father, who shows up in visions as well, played by William Catlett, with it looks like his throat's torn out. And you saw him in the film Abigail and 1001. But it's basically just these three characters. And I think that Halle has some really nice moments, and I think the film is carried quite well in the end by the two kids. The other one, we didn't say his name, is played by Percy Daggs IV, and I think both those boys do a pretty fine job in this genre film. But of course, it reminds me of so many things. I was really hoping it wouldn't be like The Watchers, which I didn't care for. As the first shot we get of Halle Berry looking out her cabin window with kind of her hair's, Halle Berry's hair is usually kind of questionable in a lot of films, but actually everything kind of fits with how she looks. And, she's Halle Berry, so she still looks pretty good for the circumstances. But as soon as we see her from a shot from behind and her hair, I was getting Piper Laurie and Carrie vibes, especially with all
Mm.
the religious things going on. And it's broken up into three parts chapters, which are all titled "The Rope Is Your Life," which the opening is also very bird boxy, right? Where if as long as you go out into the world and don't do this one thing, you're going to be just fine. And then how will I feed my children? And then what will become of us? But it's you're watching these kids on these ropes for eating all kinds of bugs. Like every night, Halle Berry's frying up like caterpillars and frogs and squirrels they've skinned. And Anthony B. Jenkins he like puts a frog in his mouth and eats that shit. But they are eventually part of the problem is the crops, the little plants she has in the greenhouse for some reason aren't growing. So she starts frying up wood shavings like potato chips.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's what these poor little kids are eating.
Oh,
Um, but part of the reason that Percy Dragg's character, I think their names are Sam and Noah, he is also a somnambulist. He's a sleepwalker, and he wears a little bell around his ankle. So he finds himself outside at night without a rope. So he keeps questioning like if the why doesn't the evil get me? And what's to me the creepiest part is Halle Berry keeps telling them if the evil gets me and I get back in the house, I will kill you.
wow.
But like if you chase that message further, I mean that is kind of what keeps us all the opiate of the masses, religion that keeps us all in place. Like this is the belief, and we cannot stray from it, or we will perish. Uh,
This is so interesting because a lot of the criticism about our the Deliverance review was not taking the possession seriously, which blows my mind because it's like, no, we should be taking the trauma of untreated, like mental health issues and or even not recognizing that, these kids have suffered significant trauma and what that could lead to. We need to take that seriously. This movie sounds like it is a representation of what untreated mental health might look like and generational trauma and
but and I was also worried it would be like that Nicolas Cage film we reviewed recently, Arcadia, where
um
there are so many movies with people, single parents or couple, or It Comes at Night, I was reminded of, or there's a recent film that Ariane Labed just directed called September Says that also has this these two kids that have gone through something extremely dysfunctional. I thought that this would have a similar twist to like we find out there's only one boy, not fraternal twins, but it doesn't do that. The
Speaking
way
of the twins and the deliverance, the one boy now has had Andra Day and Halle Berry
play his mama, yeah, that's a
in a
pretty
film where people are possessed.
yeah, it's very interesting.
What a fabulous start to his career.
Yeah. The title, of course, reminds me of that Kazuo Ishiguro adaptation, Never Let Me Go. Um, she also it was going to biblical vibes, Cain and Abel, because the boys are kind of also vying for her affection, and it's clear that Jenkins' character, there's at one point we know that they both are kind of hallucinating things because the other boy here thinks he hears him say she loves me more, and that is what causes him to step on the rope of his brother, which causes him to fall and break his ankle. So yeah, it was getting Cain and Abel vibes. There's also Hallie's reading that they have some books in the cabin. She's reading them fairy tales like the Grimm brothers, Hansel and Gretel, which also does that. But the personification of Halle Berry's hallucinations reminded me. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's an excellent film, The Fisher King, directed by Terry Gilliam, where Robin Williams is this unhoused person who has significant mental illness, and he sees these very elaborate hallucinations of kind of medieval knights and creatures trying to kill him. But it culminates in a way that you can't get away from the metaphor of what's going on. And but the title works, I think, well enough with Halle Berry telling them like you can never let go because if you let go, you're going to perish. But it really ends up being about you have to let go of the past, of the burden that we carry with us, of trauma, because she never kind of let go of whatever her mother did to her. She's literally tethered to this place. Um, but when the house is on fire, there's also this kind of the basement is this secluded area where if she thinks that they've been contaminated, she locks them up where they have to pray for a certain amount of time, kind of like in isolation to clean their soul. And then she gets them out and quizzes them about what they envisioned when the darkness left them. He hides down there as the house is on fire, and that's where we see him being lifted out. And what probably one of the best creature effects is this is the the doubter, his character in this sequence. He thinks that Halle Berry is her as a monster is talking to him, and he's clutching her down there in this like tomb space, and she turns into this bizarre lizard creature that looks the special effects look pretty good, but all he says to her, "I love you, Mama," and she crumbles. And I think that I think that it works well enough with the power of the metaphor where I think it's effective. Certainly much more than something like The Deliverance, which is entertaining schlock. But I don't know. I think Aja is not always. I don't like all of his films, but I think when he's on, he's on.
I did detect a little accent from Halle Berry. Is that correct?
Yeah, the the white man that they kill, they raid his backpack and he has a map and you see visually something about the Smoky Mountains, but yeah, it's not entirely clear where she's supposed to be from, but
Well, I'm glad to hear that you like the new Halle Berry movie.
I
What
did.
would you give Never Let Go?
I would give it three.
Nice. Anything else?
No.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.